media taking the time to come out. It gives me an opportunity just to try and be as open and transparent as I can with our community about an officer-involved shooting situation that we had last night. Just share a little bit with you what I can about the situation, how the officers are doing, and where we are going forward. Disclaimer, I don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize the case. It's still, like I said, we're not even 24 hours. A lot of us were here till a little after 1 this morning. But I do think it's important to be as open and transparent as I can. But just remember, I don't want to do anything to hurt the case. The detectives are working, or anything that would jeopardize when we turn the final case over to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office for their decision. So what I'll share with you is yesterday we had several meetings. We were making plans for the week. We had just kind of talked about what had gone on the weekend. And a lot of us had started to leave. And about 5:37 yesterday evening, we got a call to respond to the 500 block of Crown Court in reference to a suicidal subject. Officers got there about 5 or 6 minutes later, and they saw an adult male. At the time, it looked like he was in the, I would say, mid-30s to early 40s. He's actually 39 years old. And he was sitting out in front, what later determined to be his apartment. He was sitting out on a bench, if you will, and officers began to have a conversation with him. We'll talk a little bit about that conversation. And the officer that was there, several officers there had CIT training. That's our critical incident training. That's mandatory in our academy, and it teaches officers and works with officers on a psychological approach to de-escalate situations and try to connect with individuals that are going through or agitated state or in a suicidal state of mind. So as the officers get there, like I said, Aaron was sitting on a bench in front of his apartment, and in his lap or in his right hand was a firearm. So the officers began to, they did draw their weapon and then create distance between Aaron and the officers, and they began to have a conversation. Aaron was in an agitated state. He was frustrated. He talked a little bit about some things going on in his life that had contributed to that frustration. His anger. He did state several times that he did not want to live, that he just didn't want to go on. He didn't want to do this anymore. That conversation goes on for about 7 to 10 minutes. Officers repeatedly tried to connect with Aaron, tried to build rapport, and ask him multiple times to please put down the firearm. Please put down your gun. Please put that down. Aaron stands up and he starts walking towards the officers. And you continue to hear, you see the officers create a little bit further distance using the police vehicle behind the engine block there as they're having conversations. They do still have their firearms for safety pointed at the direction of Aaron and asking him to continue to drop your firearm, put the firearm down. During this conversation, Aaron is moving the firearm around, and he raises the firearm, points it in the direction of the officers, and then the officers did fire their weapon. Aaron was struck. He collapsed. Officers immediately rushed to him and provided medical assistance, medical aid. The medics then came in, and all of that is on video. The medics came in, and he was transported to an area hospital. When I got to the scene, our subject had already been transported. Chief Grinstead handled the scene there with Captain Petrosky and the detective investigative side of the house, setting up the crime scene. Forensics arrived and began to process the scene there. I left to go to the hospital, and my hope was to get to see Aaron. At the time I had got to the hospital, detectives were already there. Forensics, or other half of the forensics team was showing up at the hospital, and Aaron, regrettably, had already succumbed to his injuries. I talked to the nursing staff a little bit, the detective at the scene, and then came here to headquarters. At that point, so what had happened while I was there is we had separated the officers that were involved, the officers who actually fired, and then the officers who were there who witnessed the incident. And we brought them here and sequestered them, had them in separate rooms, and we did an investigation just like we did with any shooting in our city. As we went through that, the things that go through my mind, of course, is the mental health of the officers. We have a CISM team that is trained by clinicians and psychologists to come. I met with each one of them for a few minutes, not asking them about what happened, but checking on them. Are you okay? Have you talked to your husband or your wife, your kids, your family? Several of them have that, right? To go through something, that type of situation. It's concerning to me. Things that officers see and that they deal with is concerning to me. At that point, the detective side, the investigation took over, reached out to, I myself reached out to the Commonwealth Attorney, Mr. Gwynn. Detectives reached out to other attorneys there as they talked through what they had. Some interviews were done last night, and there will be more that will follow in the next days to come. We have a department psychologist that came in, and before anyone left here that witnessed the incident or took part, that department psychologist met with them one-on-one. Myself and the captain of North Precinct, Captain Cupp, and the other assistant chiefs sat down with the psychologist afterwards, and what I needed to do for me and the rest is to make sure that those officers going home to their families, that they were okay, that the stuff that they saw or just took part in any type of shooting in response or when you're involved, I needed to make sure that they were okay. We will continue to reach out to them, let them get some sleep today, at least this afternoon. I'll probably call a couple of them this afternoon, this evening. But our citizen folks who are trained will also reach out to them and do welfare checks on them. That's important that they stay connected. The 3 officers that were involved in the shooting were placed on administrative leave with pay throughout the course of the investigation. Like I said, we'll handle it just like we would any shooting in our city. The detectives will put that together and then submit that to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office for their review and recommendation about the incident. There's a lot of things going on, right, as we've done some of the interviews, going through body-worn camera footage. Officers had their body-worn cameras on, cameras in the area, anyone that saw anything. I was really taken back. You know, Andy, you and I talk a lot about our community, and I was really taken back some of the citizens that were getting home and how officers showed compassion. I saw Lieutenant Churchill work with one family to get them to their home without disturbing, moving people around. You know, I'm walking home and what am I seeing? And to see just individuals working with maneuvering people to where they live and not disrupting. One individual is bringing food to her mother. Just to see them working with that, it touched me as you kind of take in everything before everything starts going in motion. So we came back here. As that was going on, I got an update from Chief Creswell and his folks from the forensics processing the scene that they did recover the firearm. And in doing so, it was later determined that that firearm that Aaron had was in fact a BB gun. Now, when I saw the photograph, I couldn't tell that it was a BB gun. And in the situation and the way that Aaron was acting and things that he said, talking about not wanting to live, can certainly understand that. It's sad. For me, I did reach out to Aaron's parents. They're in upstate New York. I talked to his mother and his father. It was a good conversation. You never know how that's going to go. Nobody ever wants to have that conversation, but I think it's important to reach out to families. I was taken back a little bit when Aaron's father told me he was expecting the call. I think when we made the notification with the assistance of the law enforcement agencies in New York, I believe one of our lieutenants who knows me, or a sergeant, told them that I would probably be calling him. And that means something to me. So we had, like I said, about a 10, 15-minute conversation. It went really well. You know, you never know how that's going to go and what to say, but they just talked about some challenges that their son was having. They were almost apologetic, if you will. And I just said, look, I'm not here. I don't really want to talk about the case. I just want to offer my condolences, tell you a little bit about what happened, and I did. They talked to me a little bit about their son. I think they were very open and forthcoming. It was just a good conversation. They asked me, Chief, what's next? They thanked me for calling. I told them I would be calling them later today to kind of give them an update on what's next with, some personal property that may be here. And I just appreciated that conversation. So what we will release today is the individual that was involved in the shooting last night that lost his life. Aaron Duesenbear, I think that's how you pronounce it. I apologize if I pronounced it wrong. He is 39 years old. Aarondusinberre. Like I said, that my concern was for the community, for Aaron himself. That's why I went to the hospital. Regrettably, like I said, he had already was deceased when I got there. Then, of course, making sure that we preserve the investigation as we go forward, that we're able to turn a good investigation over to the Commonwealth Attorney, Mr. Gwynn, in his office. We don't disrupt anything the detectives are doing. There's still a lot of interviews and footage to go through, but I also wanted to make sure that the officers who witnessed that incident and were involved, their health and well-being also matter to me, as their families. Right. So with that, I will take a few questions. Just please remember that they are still, like I said, we left here about 1 o'clock, so we're 12 hours into this officer-involved shooting.
Chief, why was he agitated? Why was Aaron agitated, to the best of your knowledge? And is this, or does this case have any evidence of suicide by cop?
So I will tell you, it leads me to that just by comments he was saying that I don't want to live. I'm not going. He told I'm not going to put my firearm down. I'm going to keep it. He referred to it as a firearm. He said I'm going to keep it on my lap. I'm going to keep that firearm. It's going to stay here in my hand. And he said multiple times that he did not want to live. So does it fit in that category? I could see that. I wish I had a crystal ball to look inside Aaron's mind and what he was going through. I don't, but after talking with his parents, they certainly had some concerns and knew that there were some things going on there. Just excellent, very, very nice people, and like I said, it was a hard conversation, but I could.
Why was he agitated? Did he give you any evidence or indication? Oh, I lost my job. Oh.
So there were some things said of things he was going on in his life. I don't want to go too far down that road about things he said, but he did indicate to the probably the main officer that was trying to establish rapport and have a conversation. Like I said, it went on for about a little over 7 to 8 minutes. He was sharing some things that were going on in his life that he just didn't want to go on.
Did all three officers involved fire shots? And if so, can you say how many shots total were fired?
What was the first part?
Did all three of the officers...
So there were three. Yep. So there were three.
Did all three of them fire shots? And if so, can you say how many total shots were fired?
3 officers did fire. I don't want to get in, again, for evidence collection. I don't want to get into how many rounds were fired. We have that. I don't want to say it wrong, but I don't want to give it up to hurt anything with the investigation. That'll be some questions that we'll probably ask officers that are being interviewed and citizens. What did you hear? Those type of things. So I just don't want to put that out at this point.
How many times was Aaron shot? Do we know that?
We'll have that from the autopsy. I think they've got that actually this morning. But again, I'm not going to get into the particulars or something like that. I want Mr. Gwynn, the investigators, to have that fresh in their information.
You talked about your officers go through a lot of training to deal with situations like this, but even so, the situation still didn't end the way you would like to. So what do you guys, in retrospect, what do you guys feel like maybe needs to be done in the future, in other situations like this to prevent these situations from ending the way that this one did?
So I think anytime, regardless of the situation, when we send men and women in uniform to a situation, and they're presented with an individual in whatever state they might be in that produces a firearm, life-threatening, and points it at them, there's only so many options. One of the options we do not have is we can't just get in our cars and leave. There's citizens out there that we're responsible for. And I will tell you, I talked a little bit about Lieutenant Churchill helping a family and a little girl, and I saw that little girl, and I saw her looking at, what was going on around her. Who can even imagine what's going on in her mind? But he took care and made sure that he got her to where they needed to be. So anytime someone points a firearm at a police officer, there's only so many options. Now, someone that's going through a mental crisis or suicidal, that just makes it more complex. We have things set up in our training, our critical incident teams, our critical incident training that's mandatory in our academy. Over half the department has that training. Officer there that was having that conversation had that training. And I think that's one of the things that prolonged the conversation There's a lot of things that came out in that conversation, Andy, that you asked that are revealed in that. But when you're in that state and then interject a firearm, that is bad chemistry. They asked him repeatedly to put down that firearm, and he openly told them, I'm not going to do that. It's going to stay here in my lap. It's going to stay here in my hand. What could be, we have our CARES team, which is a clinician and paramedic that respond to situations. But I have seen situations where there has not been a firearm involved, and they have responded, and they've been assaulted. I would not put them in a situation to confront someone with a firearm and not have any way to defend themselves or protect themselves. So that's why we try to give that extra training to officers. I thought they did a really good job in establishing contact. I can tell you, they did not walk up and produce the firearm and start firing. Could they have? They took time to try to establish, to take cover, and like I said, they did have a good 7 to 10 minute conversation. But when you inject a firearm into those situations, there's only so many outcomes, and when you're in that mental state or suicidal state, it just makes it that much worse.
Was there any attempt to contact in that 7 or 10 minute conversation? Was there any attempt by the officers to try to reach out to his family and say, hey, let us get your mother or your father or somebody on the phone who, can maybe talk to you and kind of?
I can tell you there was all kinds of conversation about de-escalating, and the first thing is, could you put that firearm down so we can continue this conversation? We don't want to see anything happen to you. We want to try to help you. What can I do for you? Again, like we were just talking, can you tell me what's got you agitated? He disclosed that. And I will tell you, his father kind of disclosed the same thing to me when I talked to his dad. But again, they're there. Right? There is an individual with a firearm, and there are community members. There are people around. There are other officers around, and they have to. They're responsible to also protect themselves and their fellow officers in the community. And walking away was not an option. I would give anything. And I told each of the officers last night I would give anything if they never had to respond to a call like that. If Aaron would have put that firearm down and had there is no doubt that we would have got him help that he needed. That option did not present itself.
So this is the fourth. I think we're asking the same question.
This is the fourth officer involved shooting this year. Is this abnormally high, and were there any common factors in these 4 situations?
So I would agree, but if you're going to say it's the 4th officer involved shooting, I think you also have to say it's the 4th officer involved shooting that is involved a firearm pointed at officers. I think you have to say it's the 4th officer involved shooting that we've had with responding to mental illness and suicidal subjects. I think you also have to say that in some of those incidents, individuals have fired firearms. So you put that all in context together. It's not just 4th officer involved shooting. It's 4th officer involved shooting that we have sent officers to protect the citizens of this city. Men and women who do this job into a situation where no one else is there to do that. But there are no other options to send anyone else in that harm's way. That's what they're trained for. We talked a little bit about that. But to answer your question, I do realize that. And it is concerning to me. And I've had the same conversation with Mr. Archer and Mr. Clayton, our city managers, about, it kind of goes back sort of what you were saying, mental illness, suicidal tendencies, people that want to end their life in possession of a firearm, and they inject that. Who's coming to that call, right? When someone dials 911, we're coming to that to do our best to try to de-escalate that, and in that, that's why we go through all that training extensive, but there's also a responsibility we have to keep our citizens safe. And I expect the officers to keep themselves safe. But your point, we sat around the table last night as the investigation and the interviews were being done, myself and the other chiefs. What else can we do in our department? What else can we do? What other resources do we have that we can call on from our partners? We can talk. We work closely with the CSB board and training, and what are we seeing around the country? I think that we're kind of progressive on the front end of that. These are just situations that I wish we didn't have to respond to, but presented themselves to us, and in this profession, there are times that we have to respond.
So this, you got the call at 5:37, it was all over, and he was shot at what time?
So I tell you, Andy, I can get you a timeline. I know the call came in at 5:37. Officers got there 6 minutes later. There was about a 7 to 10 minute conversation when the firearm was displayed, pointed in the direction of the officers, and shots fired. Then again, right, they go up immediately. You see the same officers I think it goes to what you were saying, sir. The same officers who were just involved in the shooting that run up and try to save this man's life. I think that says a mindset, right? They ran up there and tried to save this man's life and then stepped back as the paramedics got there, and they did the same thing. And that's all time-stamped on the body-worn camera footage. You see that on the body-worn camera footage. But to see them trying to save a man's life that they just fired at, right? I think it paints a picture of what training, and that, right, that you just fired a weapon and now, hey, we're trying to save the same man's life that we just fired a weapon on. It's not, it was all about protection and safety. It's not about an aggression type thing. That just speaks volumes to me. So Andy, from there, he was transported pretty quickly. Chief Grinstead, I said, like, had the scene. I told him I was going to go to the hospital. I really wanted to see him, but I did not get there in time.
Just to clarify, you said Aaron pointed his gun at officers. Did he ever fire a shot at officers?
He did not. He did point his firearm in the direction of the officers.
You never mentioned that it was a BB gun to the officer?
So you hear some conversation. Again, I don't want to hurt that investigation. You hear the officers just tell you briefly that, man, I don't know. Is it? I don't know. I'm not sure. We're not sure. We can't take that chance. But Aaron did not come out and say, hey, this is just a BB gun. It's no big deal. That's not the case. They asked him, every time they had conversation was, will you put the gun down? And he replied back to them, no, I'm not going to put it down.
Was there an orange tip on the end of the gun?
No, sir. No. Once the case goes forward and submitted, when you finally see a picture of it, I think you all would agree that, no, there was nothing orange on that. When I saw the photograph myself, it looked like a firearm to me.
This was the fourth officer involved shooting this year, and I appreciate what you said, Chief. Were any of these other officers involved in any of the other police-involved shootings? No,
that's a great question. It was one of the first questions I asked when I got to the scene. This is a community that we really don't get a lot of calls at. Captain Cup and his precinct up there in the north end of the city, there's not a lot of calls there, not a lot of issues there. But I did ask, were any of these officers involved in any of the other incidents that we've had recently? And the answer was no. There's one supervisor and two officers.
Aaron, is this person, is he someone you guys had interactions with before?
So they're still digging into that. I can tell you that there's nothing on the front end that we looked at immediately, but we did a quick query of some of our databases to see. I don't know about some other things, other areas of some of the technology that we have, but I didn't see anything right away. The most I learned about Aaron was talking to his mom and dad last night and some of the concerns they had.
From conversations you've had, have you heard of Aaron, and is it pronounced Dusenberry?
It could be. I've heard Dusenberry or Dusenbear. Dusenbear, yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. Dusimberre.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? Aaron.
That's correct.
Did he have any conversations with any of his neighbors before all of this happened?
So there were some comments. I think some citizens called in and shared some concerns. Right, Aaron didn't call himself. There were citizens who called and asked for a police response to an individual who was suicidal and with a firearm. So I don't want to get into some of those conversations. We need to have some follow-up conversations with individuals. I'm sure they will go back out and be canvassing the neighborhood, but I don't want to go down that road to jeopardize anything.
Now, real quick, sorry. For clarification, this happened in the 500 block of Crown Court.
Yes,
now,
sir.
that is Crown Court at the main street that's coming in. Down one block is Crown Drive. Are we saying it's Crown Court? Because it looks as though it might actually be on Crown Drive in the 500 block of Crown Drive.
I can verify for you everything I looked at. The call came in as Crown Court. It was an apartment complex. He's out in front of his apartment.
That's where it enters, yes.
Yes, correct.
But I'm just letting you know, Crown
Sure.
Drive it's a yellow sign, private, and the other one's a green sign.
Okay. Yeah, I can tell you, and not to be flippant to anybody, I can tell you I wasn't looking at the signs when I got that. But it's a fair question. I'm going to take one or two more questions. Yep, absolutely. We'll verify it, but I know what came out was Crown Court.
I'm keeping the Crown Court until you...
Fair enough. That's fair.
I was just asking for clarification. Is he the only one that was living there, or was there anyone else?
It's a great question. I can't answer that. I know his parents did ask about coming down and being able to get into his residence and some belongings. I don't know if anyone else was there. I know the detectives spent some time there last night. They'll have that. I'll probably get a briefing around 3:30 this afternoon, but I need to.
But it was definitely his residence.
But he did live there, yes. And one more question, and then
Aaron Dusenberre, 39 years old, 500 block of Crown Court until we hear different from you.
Yes, sir.
Dusenberre.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you all taking the time. It was a late night for us. I'd ask that you would keep Aaron. I'd ask that you keep Aaron and his family in your prayers, as well as the officers that were involved in the incident and those that witnessed it. These are the same officers that, once we go through the process, that will be right back out in our community. That I don't know what kind of calls we're going to get tomorrow. I don't know what kind of calls the officers in the back of the room are going to respond to. But I do know this: they will respond. Fair enough? Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chief.